in ieder geval. En ik ga zo deze dingen staan en kijk dat mooi. What is the Raya Teach and its goals?
I mean, for us, Daria teaches for us the possibility to create an online environment about design thinking, which can be used in different situations when we have students or other stakeholders who are involved in using design thinking in practical projects.
And what is the goal of the courses developed for Ignite?
The course is to teach design thinking, although design thinking is a very complicated process which needs a lot of adjustment and is certainly an uncertain process, but the course which is developed within the Ignite module gives the possibility to have the theoretical background about the use of design thinking and giving a certain sound base to use it in practice.
Okay, and what is design thinking?
That's a very difficult question. I mean, Schultz said design thinking is a messy process in which you begin to use a certain methodology without knowing the outcome, but by exploring the possibilities, getting new insight and come to results which probably in the beginning never were clear that they could be reached.
Okay, do you have some examples of that?
You see design thinking in big companies and in smaller projects. And for example, when you start a design thinking trajectory, in our case, the first thing you have to do is kill your darling. Your basic idea has to go and research the real problem. Is it the problem you want to focus or you need to focus on, or is there maybe a problem underlying? And then you don't start to develop one solution, but you start to develop a couple of solutions, and during the process, as a funnel, you're focused more and more on one solution, which could be the answer to the question.
And what is maker culture?
Maker culture is a culture where you understand often complex themes, not by reading about it, not by taking a theoretical approach, but much more by taking a practical approach, which means doing, learning by doing, and creating with your mind, hands, whatever. It can be a digital environment or a physical environment. But maker culture helps you to understand the world around you, technology, science, and a couple of other things by doing it, and not only by reading about it.
Okay. And how was Ignite funded?
Funded by a European project, I think in a Creative Europe process. And a small part of the funding was done by ourselves because we believed strongly in the value of the project.
And why do you believe strongly in the value of the project?
Because we think we can use the online environment of design thinking and maker culture in different ways in our future projects. And I think the current situation around Corona has shown us that we need to think about a blended approach in which we combine the physical, the real face-to-face activities in a project, but also the online environment which can be helped.
And what is the audience for Ignite?
I mean, that's broad, and in principle, of course, it's students from the universities, but we have experience within working with the project that there is also heritage professionals, people who are working in libraries, exhibition developers, museum people. So it's quite broad because design thinking is a general methodology which you can use in a lot of different ways in a lot of different projects.
Yeah, that's cool. How do the courses develop? Is that iets wat ik...
I mean, I can only talk for our own course, and that's an iterative process. You develop something, you try it, you adjust it again. It's like design thinking. Design thinking is not having a fixed idea what the outcome will be. It is iterative, it is exploring, and by testing, going further and back, develop again, and going further and back, developing again. That's the right way to do it.
Okay. And how do the courses develop serve those already working in the GLAM sector?
It is new. I mean, in museums and galleries, etc., it's not always normal, between brackets, to use design thinking. So it's a new experimental process, and it needs a lot of promotion to use it more, because one of the basic things is that you leave control. I mean, in the traditional way of working, you develop an exhibition and you know exactly from the beginning how it will look like, what kind of topic, etc. But one of the main things about design thinking is, for example, in this exhibition development, okay, let's talk first to the visitor, for example.
Yeah, that's a different approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how do the courses develop serve the students wishing to work in this sector? Yeah? Okay. Who has taken courses with Ignite thus far?
I mean, there were different stakeholders, different people involved. We had students from the universities in different countries with the different partners, but also we had people from the heritage sector, from the museum sector, who are somehow was part of the summer courses, the autumn courses, or other workshops we did.
Ja, dat is eigenlijk al geweest. Hè?
Ja.
En de pandemic heb je gedaan? Ik ben alle talen aan het denken. And how did Ignite take a design thinking approach to project development?
I mean, we did work with a couple of stakeholders. For example, in the development of the module, we combined it with project we already did in our design labs, and there were different stakeholders involved, and they all played more or less a small part in the development of the course, because they also worked with the same methodology in other projects. And every moment when you work together with these stakeholders, you learn about it, and you can translate it into the digital online environment.
Ja. Dit is over blended learning en online learning. En dat is meer voor de universiteit. Hè? Ik vind het altijd leuk om een ervaring te vertellen. En jullie hebben samengewerkt met de universiteit ook. Hè? En het is wel leuk om te vertellen, how did you experience the cooperation?
The cooperation,
yeah.
I mean, the cooperation with the universities is let's say, the best of both worlds. You see, of course, universities have a very scientific approach. And the scientific approach is sometimes a contradiction to design thinking, because you don't research for a year to find a certain outcome. No, you try it. It's an iterative process. And that's, I think, it's a very rich cooperation, because you have the best of both worlds. It needs a lot of adjustment. It needs a lot of flexibility from people whom you work together. But I believe that just by having this two contradictory environments, that the outcome is much more better than if everybody would agree, okay, design thinking, that's the methodology to use.
Yeah. And did you notice that there was a different outcome in the cooperation? Or, ik bedoel, als je het zelf had gedaan, wordt het dan anders gegaan? Of,
yes, I mean, if we would have developed it by ourselves, the outcome would be completely different, because now you constantly have some sort of a mirror which is held before you, and your approach is checked to the approach of other stakeholders. I mean, again, that's the basic idea of design thinking. It's not about doing this, what you always do, but just by cooperating with different stakeholders, different background, different disciplines, etc. The outcome is much more rich in the environment. So yes, it is a very good approach, I think.
Ja. Moet ik even kijken als ik nog wat mis ik nog wat, denk ik? Wat nog echt verteld moet worden?
Nou ja, ik denk misschien, en dus, ik wil niet zeggen een kritische kanttekening, maar wat het ook gaat laten zien, dat online alleen ook niet functioneert.
Ja, dat is van een goeie. Want ik heb nu een student geïnterviewd en die had nu die online filmpjes ook van Ignite gekeken. En die jou zegt, het is super omdat ze ook kunt combineren. Dat maakt het dus goed.
Ja,
dat is misschien
dat heeft te maken met de blended approach.
Ja, dan zal ik dat. How did Ignite create content that is designed for blended learning?
Ja, nou, ik denk dat het goed is om te hebben over een van de conclusies van het project.
Ja.
Is dat net zo goed als het fysiek en het allemaal de enige manier is om te werken, de online omgeving is ook niet de enige. Ik bedoel, dat merken we dagelijks. Ja. En dat vooral die blended combinatie, dat de kracht is voor de toekomst.
Ja, dat denk ik ook. Ja. Wie gaat dan de vraag stellen?
Any remarks about it?
Ja. Maar die vraag heet toch goed.
Well.
Do you have any remarks about this project?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good project, what you said before, but also what we have learned, certainly in the current corona crisis, is that only online is not the only way to go. I mean, only physical development with books isn't the only best way to work with, only online the same. So we strongly believe, and I think this is one of the major conclusions of this project, is that a blended approach in which you combine physical working in groups with the online environment is the best way to go, because then you can use the strength of both sides.
Ja, is ook zo. We hebben dat online learning ook. Ja. We zien gewoon dat gaat in de toekomst en de samenwerking met wat zou een toekomstbeeld kunnen zijn?
Yeah. I mean, this project assured us that we also in the future we would like to cooperate together with the university and research center, because it gives us some sort of scientific validation for the things we do. I think there are a lot of questions in our field of working which would be benefit from research, and I see what I said before, the richness of the different worlds coming together and working together. The outcome is much more diverse than if these both worlds work only in their own circle.
Ja. Ja, en ik denk dat we het meeste wel hebben gezegd, hè.
Mm-hmm.
Ja. Ik zou nog kunnen vragen, how might your experience developing content for Ignite be useful for teaching others to develop content for web-based delivery? Dat is ook meer dan een universiteit, hè?
Ja.
Ja. Dan denk ik dat we het wel zoiets hebben.
Oké.
We hebben hele leuke dingen.
Prima.